Okay, Shalom Christy, Melod. In this case, I said hello, Christy. How are you? Nice to meet you. Um, Smee Wesley. You already know that. My name is Wesley. In this case, I'll be talking about the wheelchair and how the ADA differs and some of the things like that. Now, you guys should be aware, Yesh Lumatuk Shahin, which means I have cerebral palsy in Hebrew. You guys will not see me sitting in the wheelchair. I do have some ability and things, but I'm going to explain why my wheelchair is different and where the ADA can differ. So, you probably will hear my voice more so than the video, seeing me in this case, but it's a way for me to practice Hebrew and stuff. I got my Hebrew lesson out of the way. Today is Friday. I will be filming this. All right, really quickly, just a couple of things to go over. You will not see traditional bicycle spokes on this chair because you're not supposed to. I had these done and altered this way so that, one, in the case of a wheelchair, if you have traditional bicycle spokes, they break. This is a manual chair. Somebody like me, in my case, if I were to date, I don't date because I'd prefer to have an Israeli Jewish spouse, but that's another story. We won't get into that here. And Kihiti ani hayudi, which means because I'm Jewish, but I'm not going to go too much into that. Well, I will as far as some of the differences as far as the wheelchair not fitting in and stuff, but we'll get into that more later. So a couple of things you're going to see. This is a manual chair. Now in my case, what you're seeing here, these little curved items that are up, they're wheelie bars. They're designed to anti-tip. Typically, I will leave them up on the back. Normally, I would have a crunch holder for the crunch tips, but that came off. So I've got to get a rivet gun and reattach that. So that's a couple of things we're going to go through. My wheelchair does fold up. However, I usually do not fold it all the time because the more you fold them, the more the screws can come loose. Now, in my case, I'm going to have a tighter turn radius. Now, this is where it differs, Christy. For example, if the ADA requires certain hallway lengths, I may be able to fit where someone in an electric wheelchair may not. If a ramp is too steep, my wheels in the front here may not be able to get over a lip, and I may have to rely on somebody to do that. Now, normally I keep a backpack and a small pouch under the chair, but in this case we took it off for convenience. For the sake of this video, it does fold up. I can fit in the trunk of a car or things like that. However, the one difference that mine has that some wheelchairs may have is my tires are solid rubber. I normally don't put a tube in them because if the tire gets punctured, you have a flat and you can't go anywhere. Now in this case, I've got good tread. To replace the tread, they will physically cut the tire off the rim and then put the tire on there. Yes, they physically cut the tire off. My case, my tires are not angled because I have what's called a cross frame chair. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's an X toward the front. Let's see if that works, provided my pouch doesn't get in the way. Let me see if I can get a good angle. Sort of. It's not going to show up as well, but there's an X under here. The reason you want 0 degree tires, in most cases, is with this style chair to help it fold. If you angle them too much, you lose part of your energy in the push, and it causes you to tire out. Especially going uphill, or if you have to bump it back. In some cases, that can also backfire on a door entrance. Because in some cases with some synagogues or older buildings, because they're historic, they may not necessarily be ADA compliant because they're grandfathered in. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just an older building, and in some cases with disabilities, a lot of times, at least here in the U.S., back in the early days, because I was born in the 80s, in my case, I was premature, and I had the old school incubators, so they had the knobs, and We're not sure if that actually contributed to my vision problem because I'm also legally blind. Um, I can see, but on paper, technically speaking, when you're legally blind in the United States, you can be what's called partially sighted. So when you're looking at me in this camera, Christy, and my Israeli friend are looking, of course, she probably already knows this. I have retina detachment in my left eye and normally keep the lens darkened out to prevent it. In some cases, I may not take photos very often because I have light sensitivity and astigmatism. So somebody like me also doesn't see very well. So when you guys see me film at the television set and stuff, the reason my TV is not mounted is because when I tilt my head up, I have to have a better line of sight to see it. It has to be at the height level. It's not that I can't see it, but for example, like my phone and holding it, if I have it up here, I can tell where it is. So somebody like me may use a voice assistant here and there. I'll do research obviously, but in my case, one of the advantages I have having the mobility that I have is if I need to use the restroom, I can stand up and use a urinal. If there's handrails, it's much easier to transfer and things like that. Now, one of the big problems, if I were to have a date, in case my Israeli friend asked me, because you did ask about this, one of the reasons that I typically avoid it is a lot of times people can be put off by it. Sometimes I have to wear a leg brace in formal occasions if I want to go to a Jewish wedding or there's going to be a dance, and they're not very comfortable. They're very heavy and they pull. The current pair that I have goes all the way up my right leg to the pelvic bone. So you would literally see this. Yes, I have a contortion in my right leg due to the knee bone. So the right side is more noticeable. So if you've ever seen my pictures, which I'm sure you have, I had some that I posted that you probably looked at, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But that's why my right leg looks slightly offset. It's not actually broke. The bone literally grew and calcified like that. And the hip scar that you saw is from where I had the joint actually dislocate from the muscle tension pulling the joint out of socket. Which is why I had a broke hip at 12 years old and spent a year and a half from the sternum down. So I'm literally scarred up. Someone like me doesn't do a lot of things shirtless or anything like that because partially to be modest, and the other side of it is I'm literally scarred from head to toe. So somebody like me doesn't like to date very much because I've had a lot of scars from surgery and stuff, including the gallbladder surgery, which you were aware of. So that makes gallbladder surgery should make 21 by last count. Well, excluding the wisdom teeth thing, which is you'll never see those because my wisdom teeth had to come out because they were impacted. But the wisdom teeth thing is very common. I do have dexterity. It's not as good on my right side. So if somebody like me, if I were to greet her in Israel and to try to see her, if it were an emergency or I needed to get her attention, I would probably use my left side more prominently. But things like holding things, I have to have a cup holder. That's what this is. This just folds up like that. Brakes, I have mine where they push out or go forward, and then I take them off. Even the armrests come up and they detach. The footrests do swing out. That's what these buttons where my fingers are. You just push them, they swing out. That kind of stuff. The cushion's Velcro, and it actually lifts up. There's little tabs. I don't know if you can see those very well. Those lift up. You can actually take the back out, and then underneath where these screws and rivets are, once you lift the cushion up, they come up. But for example, if a ramp is too steep, somebody like me may have a harder time pushing, whereas somebody in an electric wheelchair might make it. If there's a pothole, sometimes that can be a problem. It can cause the wheelchair to tip or flip. If a hill's too steep, I had to have several college classes moved to other buildings because of that, because of the fire concern and stuff. So that's just some of the stuff you go through. But there are other things I like to do. I mean, that doesn't stop me from sports or anything. I mean, somebody like me would like, if I ever got a chance to have a significant other or girlfriend, somebody like me would like to take her to the International Spy Museum. Because there are ways that I can travel without necessarily getting an airline that are a little more friendly, like Amtrak. I take a train to Washington, I can be there in DC in 14 hours from Atlanta. So, that's really easy. Because they have seating, and I can park the wheelchair and literally get up and use the restroom, as in get in the wheelchair and stuff. They have a luggage cart that's a turn crank, and it'll lift the wheelchair and everything. The wheelchair itself is about 25 to 30 pounds, kilograms. This is very crude because I know it's 2.2, but basically that would be somewhere between 60 and on the low end for the kilograms. I know that's a little rough. Because I know Israelis use metric. We use a form of imperial measurement. So my cup holder, for example, would hold 32 ounces, and I think y'all use milliliters for liquids. For like cola, which is, we would say Coke. Yeah. Here in the South, normally you would say Coke. Like somebody would go, "I'd like a Coke." Well, do you want a Pepsi or an actual Coke? Because generally you'd use a generic term, like for example, instead of tissue, we would say Kleenex. So different stuff like that. Now, I can use a normal toothbrush and stuff when I was in the hospital, although for me, I used the 30-second smile toothbrush because one of the things I got real upset about was when I had the early stages of gingivitis. I got really upset that I would keep missing spots, and every time I would go in there, my teeth weren't bad, but I didn't want them to progress, and the first thing I know girls notice is the teeth. So, and there's nothing against that. I mean, I'd like to be able to smile at them, and plus, you don't do very well with your Hebrew if your teeth are bad. So, somebody like me, they try to be proactive with their health and stuff. So, that's just kind of some of the stuff I go through. I mean, I can transfer in and out of a seat, but, if a door's too narrow, or in some cases, with me being visually impaired, certain things like plays are a little bit harder. Now, one of the advantages I have with my movie pass is the Regal Theater here, they do Fathom events, and they'll show operas and things like that, where somebody like me who is more comfortable wearing short sleeves and less formal dress to stay cool, because you do get hot and dehydrated. If you don't watch it, they'll go to the movie theaters because the screens are really big. Oh, don't mind the blinking thing, because sometimes with the lights on and stuff, I have to close my eyes every so often and readjust. Because I have astigmatism and light sensitivity. Plus, it's really late and I'm kind of sleepy. Nothing against y'all. I had a busy schedule, and I was trying to get everything done, and I did promise Christy that I would try to do the video Thursday, and I ran later than I anticipated. Plus, I wanted to shave and stuff. I didn't want you guys looking at the wolf man. Thought I was going to turn into a werewolf for a second. So, but stuff like that. Turn radiuses, stuff like that. Now, one advantage I had, that's another problem with dinner dates. Sometimes if a table's too high, that can be a problem. Or if I want to sit, I have to swing the footrests out. People like me don't get, they get disappointed because they can't pull the chair out for young ladies and have them sit. Somebody like me, if I did get a Jewish spouse, I might ask her if I can have one of those groove rings, because reason being, it's not that I don't want to wear the gold wedding band, but things like the spoke and where I have to push up in a door frame or something like that, if my fingers get snagged, the ring is literally designed to break. Thus, not allowing my finger to get caught or pinched. And I could save the actual gold band wedding ring for formal occasions and things like that. And for everyday use, if I were to go to the gun range and target practice, that groove ring could break and I could just replace it much easier. So stuff like that is different things like that. When I have complete touch and stuff and I can walk, it's just I get tired. So, because the braces and stuff are very heavy and short distance, it does take a lot more exertion because I have to use forearm crutches with handles and braces, and those braces are not very comfortable. So typically, if I don't have to, especially in the case of synagogue and formal clothes, I don't put them on. Reason being is they do tear your clothes up, and that if you have a spring lock and everything, in order to use the restroom, you literally have to wear them outside of your clothes. And your clothes get hung and snagged. Somebody like me has to wear a belt because they're sitting all the time, so trying to keep things in your pockets is not always convenient. So reaching for your cell phone, somebody like me has to have a phone holster and different things like that because it's very hard to try to fish things out of your pocket, especially modern cell phones. As a matter of fact, I think the phone I'm holding, which is an A51, is around 7 inches. So, you have to deal with some of that. And I'm not trying to sound pessimistic, but somebody like me gets frustrated because they want to be able to walk somebody to the door, not have to worry about their date closing the door behind them. They want to make sure they get in okay. And somebody like me wants to make sure they had a good time and stuff like that. Because it's, at least to me, sometimes it's a pain knowing I have to carry a wallet magnifier, one of those little credit card magnifying glasses, or somebody like me can't find a large print sitter, Jewish prayer book. Sometimes it's frustrating. Because you want to be able to do different stuff like that. But somebody like me also wants to, hey, you want to go rock climbing, or I'm going to the gun range, do you want to come? Different stuff like that. I want somebody who's, I guess from my perspective, they get excited and they start to realize, yeah, he may need some help with some things, but I'm not a caregiver. He actually sees me as the girlfriend, you know. And they do get excited that maybe in some ways it sparks a little curiosity and stuff. Because you did ask me, well, the Israeli person that could be watching this video did ask me why I don't date, so that's kind of the reason why. That and I'll fill you in more on Lenora Arbogast. I did actually find out how to pronounce her last name correctly thanks to Google Assistant. I looked it up on my Google Max Hub, which is in the Hadarshana, or my bedroom. I do live with family. I do financially contribute. So before anybody says anything, yes, I have to have certain size rooms. Yes, I do actually manage to do some things and pay bills and stuff like that. So don't give me any grief.